Police brutality is not about racism. That's right. What it is about is the police state that we have here in America. It's about the growing militarization of the police force. It's about the loss of civil liberties. It's about the police seeing the average American as an enemy because under the war on drugs and the war on terror, Americans are, by default, criminals. So before you start going raging, because I know some of you are like this cartoon face right here saying, what the hell? You're like calling the sky red. Just give me a chance here to explain myself, and I'm sure that you will see my point of view and understand it, because it's probably very simple to see, but because of the context we're in, like fish in water, it's hard to see it for what it is if no one points it out to you. So let's begin. So we can see that there are people who believe that black men and women are targeted disproportionately by the police, that they are almost like there's a campaign against them as a total. So we can see here that different articles about it. We can see this is a blog that has that agenda to demonstrate how police brutality targets blacks specifically. We can see magazines asking about it, whether or not young black men are targeted by the police officers. So this is on many people's mind, that there's a police agenda to target black people and perhaps to even kill them unjustly just because they're black, as we've heard of the saying, walking while black or driving while black, like as if just being black is enough to be pulled over and harassed and arrested and potentially killed. There's even a petition here to stop the brutality, which I'm not too sure what its main agenda is to say. What is it? Don't arrest black people anymore? I guess to stop and frisk, which has been done. But as we can see, this is in the social milieu. It's in the blogosphere. It's around. People are thinking about it. So here are some numbers. Now, this is from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, and we have here a table showing what here represents arrest-related deaths and supplementary homicide rates. Now, this again means, this acronym stands for the deaths of people that happen while they're being arrested or in the process of being arrested. And supplementary homicide rate is a little caveat to ARD, which is within the group of people that die while being arrested, the ones that are dead because of police officers' homicide. Because not all people that die while being arrested are at the fault or are dying at the hands of officers. What's happening is that they can be killing themselves, like a suicide, or they can overdose on drugs, or they can unintentionally harm themselves, like being drunk and falling over and hitting your head on the curb of a street sidewalk. So we can see with this number we have down here race, and so we have white and black, and we can see that the number is 2,300 for whites that have been killed at the hands of officers, homicide by officers while being arrested, and 1,600 for whites. And we can see that if there was some kind of effort to attack black people over any other race, we would see these numbers reversed, but we don't. So this goes to show you that that's not the issue. Now, moving on to this statistic, we see here that we're looking at the race of officers pulling over the different races of the races of the people they pull over on average. So we can see that most likely white people are pulled over by white cops. and that when it comes to white officers pulling over black people, they pull them over at the same rate as Hispanic people. So we don't see there's like a concerted effort here. If anything, someone can argue there's a concerted effort of whites against whites, but that would make no sense. So we can see here that, again, if there would be a concerted effort against black people, white police officers would be pulling over black people more often than they do white people, but we don't see that. We even see that black officers are more likely to pull over other black people. But because probably there are more white officers, there's that 65 and 64%. So moving on, we have here a homicide table for 2013 from the FBI. And again, if we would see a concerted effort of a targeting of black people, we would see these homicide rates to be skewed so that white people are killing more black people than vice versa, or than blacks on blacks. But what we see instead is that when it comes to black African Americans, they're killing mostly themselves. Same thing with whites. Whites are also killing mostly themselves, 25 to 22. But the interesting thing here is, when it comes to whites killing other blacks, it's a little bit under 200, while when it's blacks killing whites, it's at a little over 400. So almost over 2 times the amount. So black people are more likely to kill a white person than a white person would kill a black person. So black people are more likely to kill whites than whites are to kill blacks. And also what's interesting here, looking at the total numbers, seeing that black people only make up about 12% of the U.S. population, they make up almost 50% of all homicides. Now, I don't know what to make of the statistic besides just stating it, and I'll leave for you to decide whatever to think about it, or whether or not to even consider it, and what it means. There's multiple interpretations of it. So this is a quick breakdown of the population. You can see that whites make up about 72%, while blacks make about 12% of the whole population. So I want to just point out here that what's going on is the rise of the police state. So basically, officers are, because of the war on drugs, because of the war on terror, and other things pointed out in books like this, because of these issues that seem to be threatening, cops have been beefed up over the years, and they've been treating Americans like criminals. And because of that, when we have any sign of disobedience to officers, immediately we have retaliation. It's this idea of disobedience. The disobedience, for instance, a black person may get pulled over because, for any reason that maybe no reason at all, that's very justified, and it's happened many times before, and he's reasonably frustrated and reasonably upset. But that upset, the cop is trained to see that upsetness, to see him upset as a threat, as something that he needs to put down immediately, because that's the way they're trained. They're trained to, if the person you're dealing with is not cooperating with you, you must make them cooperate. You must force them to cooperate. And that's the only, so see, that's where the training happens. They are told that they must make the person completely follow what you're saying. They cannot disobey. And if they disobey, put them down. Put them down. So what we have here is the escalation of situations where people are reasonably upset at officers, and officers take it to the next level because the upset is a threat and it's non-compliance. They see it as a form of non-compliance. So books like this and many others, as you can see here, all desperately try to show us how the police state we're living in is growing out of this need to protect ourselves against things like terrorism, which kill less people than peanuts in the United States, and things like the war on drugs, which drugs are made even more dangerous when they're illegal because of black markets. Just think of Mexico and the problem they have out there with almost, what is it, 70,000 people dead in 5 years or something. It's absolutely amazing, because it's sad. And so what we have is a movement from police officers as peace enforcers, people who keep the peace and make sure everything's nice and calm, versus or in order, versus warriors and soldiers. I mean, we even see police officers getting weapons and equipment like hand-me-downs from military organizations, from the Army, from the Marines, from the Navy. It's ridiculous. Like, why would they need an MRAP? Why would they need a small tank? It just doesn't make any sense. And when you think about it, it's all because of the war on drugs and the war on terror. If there was no war on drugs, we wouldn't need that. And as I explained in many other videos, the war on drugs is just a failure, and it has to be stopped immediately. That doesn't mean we have to make drugs legal tomorrow, but it means that we have to stop throwing people in prison for using. So, what I want to just end with is that, some cops are racist. Of course, there are racist people out in the world. We can't deny that. We can't deny that some of them do get to hurt other black people. Maybe not. Or maybe they just live a life where they're always hating black people and never do anything. Or vice versa. Maybe it's black officers hate white people. So I'm never going to deny there's not racist officers. But I don't believe it's a systematic racism where they're trained or encouraged to go after black people. I think that's very facile. Like I said, the drug war and the war on terror and our loss of liberties have made the police see us as criminals. Now, the unsettling fact is that for many people, the narrative that the problem with police brutality is one of a racial issue is more comfortable, and let me explain this and why I say comfortable, than the idea of a police state. The reason why it's more comfortable is because with the racial narrative, we have like a conclusion, we have a kind of culmination and a resolution where we have certain laws passed and integration and MLK, and so because of that, people feel that may happen again in another form. It's easily imaginable because it's happened in recent history, whereas the idea of a police state is completely different and has no context in history and has no resolution that people can look forward to. It's much more terrifying. It makes you feel completely powerless. At least with a racial issue, you can go out in the street and most people will agree with you. No one wants to be racist, and most of the time, 99% of the people. But when it comes to police state, I mean, people don't even know how to put that into context. What that means, they feel the government's all good, but they don't understand that governments can overrun people's lives and take their liberties away, and often do in history. So what we see is a kind of moving away from a police state narrative because it's more comfortable or more palatable to think about a racial narrative instead. So I just want to end this video. But before I want to end this video, I also want to explain why the rhetoric of racism is a problem. It's a huge problem. The rhetoric of racism, in terms of officers, will always keep us divided. The reason for that is that because accusing people of things that they aren't, and accusing them of things as despicable as being a racist or whatnot, is something that will only divide people. As long as you keep calling people racist pigs, cops are never going to join forces and say, our training is problems. We're becoming a police state. We're becoming too militarized. We should stop that in reverse. We should go back to a more Andy Griffin kind of police officer rather than a Terminator kind of police officer. So, calling people racist and accusing them of being a racist without any, real motive, just because they pulled over a black person or anything, that doesn't really mean much. So most of the time, when you're just calling blank statements like that to officers, you're only going to create a divide. You're only going to make the divide much more wider. So you see, this is a huge problem, this rhetoric. It's only going to hurt us. We need to change it and assume that, because these guys are strangers most of the time. People are calling each other racist. They don't know anything about them. They see a 2-second video or a 2-minute video and they think they know everything about the person. They have no idea about the context, what they've done in their lives, what their other relationships are like with black people or peoples of other races, and they just go quick to assume the worst in them. So this is such an issue, and it's a problem. So I want to go through this infographic. So we'll just go through it here. So just to reiterate that last point, the danger of racism, the racism rhetoric, keeps us divided by assuming the worst character traits in people we have no idea about. Okay, so let's see. Is the U.S. turning into a police state? Militarized police, sophisticated surveillance, and normal citizens with little say in what goes on. The U.S. has all the trappings of an all-powerful police state. Police state. It's a noun. A totalitarian state controlled by a political force that secretly supervises the citizens' activities. Oh, it sounds like NSA. So is the U.S. a totalitarian state? No. It's an inverted totalitarian state. So what does that mean? So let's look at a totalitarian state versus the U.S. So there's examples. Everyone's example of a crazy authoritarian state. Nazi Germany. So what we have is corporations control the government through political contributions and lobbying. It's state-dominated economic actors. So we could see that one is a control of the of economics straight from the government. The other one is more like a buffer with corporations in the middle, but the fact that they lobby and give political contributions, they're basically in bed with the government anyway, so it might as well be the same organization. We have on Nazi Germany side a constant political motivation, rally supports for leaders with Nuremberg rallies and Hitler Youth, so getting people all really souped up to see their leader. What in the U.S. they do is persistent political apathy allows leaders to do what they want. So most people in the U.S. don't even care about politics. So it's an inversion there. So instead of getting them really interested, they're actually really uninterested in politics. They don't want to do anything with them. And so now the leaders do whatever they want on top of that. Pretty scary. We have a mock democracy in Nazi Germany, and here we have a pretense to be the model of democracy for the whole world, where we're not a democracy, like that Princeton study showed. We're not a democracy. The public opinion has basically no effect on whether or not laws get passed. But the opinions of the elite do. So we can see that the U.S. is a managed democracy. What this means is that it's a political form in which governments are legitimated by elections that they have learned to control secretly. So we definitely have the policing power. Over the last 25 years, civilian law enforcement has been increasingly militarized in America. This is, again, because the war on drugs and the war on terror. There have been a 4,000% increase in no-knock military armed SWAT raids over the past 30 years. These are very dangerous because you can imagine just someone busting down your door and you don't know who they are, and you just think coming in, and if you're a gun owner, you may pull out your gun just because this is like the worst nightmare. This is exactly what you bought a gun for, to protect yourself. And people are just not even announcing they're police officers and just busting in with all black on. It could be in the middle of the night. You don't even get to see what they're wearing, or if they have badges, or if they have something like police across their chest. No, it's in the middle of the night, and all you get to do is grab your gun because you got to protect your family. So you can see it's just set up to fail all over. Look at the SWAT developments, how it's been increasing. I mean, in the 80s it was only 3,000. Today it's 40,000. Look at this, with the hotline for erroneous no-knock raids receiving more than 100 calls in 1 week of operation. That means how many times? That's 100 people a week. have been targeted by these no-knock raids, and it was the wrong house. They went to the wrong house. So you can imagine, like, it's crazy. And this is what I'm talking about. They're not doing this just to black people. They're not doing this just to Hispanic people. They're doing this to everybody. Maybe not to the elites. Maybe not to the super rich, the 1% or the 10th of 1%, but they're doing it to everyone else. This is the police state. This is the growing police state that we're having here. It's not about racism. It's about totalitarian forms of law and order. It's about wars on the populace themselves, wars on drugs, wars on terror, you know? Even to responding domestic calls, they come in with military tactics. People fighting with their wives or girlfriends. I mean, it's crazy. You know? Look at what most violent offenders have. Nothing. And the second most thing they have, a gun. But, you know, and then you got unknown, other, and knives. But look what SWATs have: submachine guns, automatic weapons, which means they just hold down the trigger and it just goes sprays. Breaching shotguns, which I'm not sure what it is. Stun grenades, heavy body armor, sniper rifles, night vision, motion detectors, armed personnel carriers. I feel like I'm about to play Rainbow Six or something. And this is just like police officers going to a domestic disturbance call. Look at this. The U.S. has the largest prison system. We have only 5% of the world's population. We have a quarter of all the prisoners. Almost 1 in 100 adults, actually less than that, 1 in 99 adults is in prison. And 1 in 31 adults is in the system. You know, maybe they're on probation or they have a court date, maybe they're on bail. It's incredible. You know, when you know, yeah, so it includes prison, jail, parole, and probation. And then look at the imprisonment rates of other countries in perspective. The U.S. 716, but look at something like Rwanda, Russia of all places, China. We incarcerate more people than the true totalitarian state of China. That's amazing. It just goes to show you that there's a war on everyone here. Look at it. Over the past 40 years, the U.S. population of the U.S. prison population has risen by 700%. This has nothing to do with race. This is targeting all Americans. Look, again, with the NSA providing... See, NSA wasn't just targeting black people. They're targeting everyone. With the NSA providing constant surveillance by wiretapping entire offices, cell towers. With 9,000 tower dumps in 2013. A tower dump is now meaning a record of all calls bounced off of a cell phone tower within a certain period of time. The NSA gathers nearly 5 billion records a day on smartphone locations. Your wonderful $200-300 smartphone is just a tracking tool. I mean, who needs microphones in all the houses when you have cell phones you can just hack into, that are easily hacked into, that if you ever look at your apps are constantly sending out information about you. Sending out the websites you went to, the contacts you have, the messages you wrote. All these things are being sent out by your normal apps. It's just amazing. And so it's like, who needs the Big Brother camera when we got all these cell phones? And I have one too, so I'm not trying to say how you might. I don't have a cell phone. I have one too, so it's just like, because they're great. Don't get me wrong. They're reliable and they have a lot of features, but look at all the shit they're doing to us with it. And even entire countries by installing fiber optic splitters in telecom facilities. Your accounts online aren't safe. Look at all the companies that give their data to the government without even any kind of fight. This is how much they care about you as a customer. Even unopened hardware. The NSA intercepts computer shipments to plant spyware on new systems. Much less powerful nations have been policed. Why couldn't the US be one? It's just, and here's all the stats. I'm sorry, the citations, the references. Well, that's basically where I want to end right now. It's just, it's just amazing, it's really hard to stomach, when you're new to this, or even when you've looked at it for years. It's just, and now with this new rhetoric, with this racial stuff, I had to make this video. Police brutality is not about racism. It's about the police state here in America. Thanks for listening. Have a good one. Metaself out.